Hey, good day, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Bob Roberts. I'm an aerospace education officer with the Civil Air Patrol here in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, our guest today is a pilot with a focus on general aviation, and he has an engaging YouTube channel called Over 50 and Learning to Fly. Now, I have a link to that channel down below. Now, without any more discussion, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. His name is Ted Greenfield.
Hey, Bob, thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure, and it's a real pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, Ted, I was really happy to have you. You actually got a recommendation. Nancy Bradshaw, I'm not sure if you know who she is.
Oh, yeah, I know Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy, I was talking to her last week or the week before, and Nancy was like, hey, you should have Ted on. And I said, all right. I said, I follow his channel. I said, I'm one of his subscribers. I said, I'll reach out to Ted. And
Nancy is just, we started our YouTube channels at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I started looking at all the other YouTubers, and I just reached out to her and I'm like, hey, you're awesome. You're awesome. And we just kind of struck up we've never met in person, but we've struck up a friendship. And I said, let's do a program together. And we did a program together about finding good flight instructors. And I had a really bad experience with one instrument instructor who I, fired after the first day. Oh. And I called her up and I said, what do you think? You're an instrument instructor. And she's, she was horrified from what she heard, but we've struck up a really interesting friendship. And I tell you, I am so proud of her just as a person, as a pilot. She, she just got type rated in the 747.
So cool.
She is, she's the type of person that just steps on the gas in life, I'm looking forward to the one day I meet her, but we kind of chat here and there, and we're very supportive of each other's channels. So I was really thrilled when I got your email.
Yeah, when someday when this whole COVID thing wraps up and we can all get back to our version of normals, hopefully someday like Nancy, yourself, and maybe we can get can stop off at Oshkosh some year or something like that and meet up, get a nice burger.
Yeah, what I'd love to do, and I even brought this up. I said, hey, booths at Oshkosh are pretty pricey, but I said, why don't we put a whole bunch of the YouTubers together and just go in on a booth?
Man.
Just be there to meet and greet, encourage, to answer questions, and to really expand our aviation world and everybody else's aviation world.
Yep. Dude, I am so in on that. I can't even tell you. I could do a little interview thing on the side. People could come over. We could do live interviews at Oshkosh. Oh man, I'm all in. So
yeah, I think if a group of us get together and chip in, it'll be manageable, as well as aviation at its core is a community.
It is.
And I can't, all the people that I've met through YouTube and and just landing at different airports, people who've seen my channel, and you get this whole community with this. So it's it would do nothing but to enhance that.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm already imagining like what we could do in the booth and like, and if you've got a bunch of people, each of us may have say 30, 40, 50,000 or whatever, people that watch our videos, but you get a whole group of us together, I think we'd have a pretty good audience there too. So, and we could make sure different people were at the booth at different times. So yeah, man, I'm in on that. Let's back up a little bit. So when did you actually start? Because you say starting to fly at 50, right? So did you actually start learning to fly when you were in your 50s, or?
Well, I started learning to fly when I was 16, and I was in high school, and I had taken some flying lessons, and back when I was 16, 17, there was a giant struggle. Was I going to be a pilot, or was I going to be the backup bass player for Rush?
Dude, right? Here you go. I'm ready to go.
Right, exactly. So was I going to be a great bass player and all that? And I think, unfortunately, distractions of teenage life, took over. And then when I was in my 20s, I kind of leaned into it again, and I was in just out of college, and then I was overwhelmed with the expense of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had tried a few times, and maybe I had 20 hours, and I probably had about 5,000 hours in Microsoft Flight Simulator over the years.
That's right.
But, then you reach this state, and I always have a passion for aviation. And I'm an online e-learning developer, a multimedia producer. And I've been in the government, but then I ended up, transitioning over to the FAA, developing online training for them. And I was in my early 50s, and it just hit me. It's like, what's going on? Why aren't you doing this? Because there's something that happens in your 50s. You're kind of, I hate that word retirement, but you're starting to think about that next phase of life and what that's going to look like. And my dad lived into his 90s. He was a doctor. He was, he always had things to look forward to. When he retired from being a doctor, he went into, he became a photographer and an artist, and he was in galleries, and his artwork was just amazing. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my model. And that's, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I was still a musician, and I was playing in a lot of Christian worship bands. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just kind of transition into producing music. And I thought, but then it was Christmas. I think it was December 20th, 2016. And I was down in North Carolina, and I don't know, there was a banner up there, and it said, "Learn to fly at OBX airplanes." And it just hit me. I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. If I don't do this now, I'm never going to get it done. So I took a discovery flight, and I remember I landed that little Cessna 150, and I'm like, I'm 110% in right then and there. So I just, and I got along really well with my instructor, and, and we became actually friends, and that's Jenny Hawk from OBX Airplanes. And if you're down in the Outer Banks area, I don't think she's doing a whole lot of flight training anymore, but they have they have biplane rides, and they have, aerial tours and things like that. But they were really wonderful people down there. And so I just decided, and I made that decision 110%. I've got to get my pilot's license. And it's just, it's kind of like a landmark thing. But when it really changed when I soloed. Mm-hmm. And my solo changed my life. And that's what I will tell everybody, because I remember I was, taxiing around, and I had about 10 hours. And the instructor, Jenny, she just goes, "Okay, taxi over here for a bit." And I thought, that was kind of odd. What do you want me to do? So she has me taxi over by the hangar, and the engine's running, and she just goes, "All right, I want you to do 3 or 4 laps in the pattern." And she just gets out of the plane and slams the door, right? And I'm like, "You got to come with me." And she just points, and she's just like, "You in the airplane now."
So you didn't even know it was about to happen.
I had no idea. And I can't tell you, here I was at 52 or 53, mm-hmm. freaked out. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, okay. And then you're at a little 150, I'm like, okay, flaps, what do I do? Yep. The moment that plane lifted off, my life changed. Yep. Because, here I was, and I was just doing laps in the pattern, and it just dawned on me. It all came to me like a flood. It's like, you can do this. This is your next phase of life. Mm-hmm. And as I'm doing like 4 or 5 laps in the pattern, it just all came from, hey, you got to get your instrument. You can get your commercial. You can buy a plane, and you can become a mission pilot. Yep. And, and then you could do this. You can even become a flight instructor. You can even sell airplanes, and all it's going to take is a couple of years of training to get up and down, and you've got the money for it. It's mm-hmm. It's not where you're in your 20s again. So I probably did more than 4 or 5 laps in the pattern. I probably almost came close to running the tank stride, because I was just doing loops. But my life changed at that solo, and I just was 110% in. And it was a real life, a life convergence, because everything kind of worked in at once. My video skills, my multimedia skills. I was at the FAA. I was in safety promotion. I was teaching safety classes. And then before I knew it, I was a pilot. I got my private, I was signed off in about 4 months after doing that. Then I went out, ran out, bought an airplane. And I just started flying. I got the best advice I got after I did my privates was get about 150 hours of VFR time before you do your instrument. Mm-hmm. And I tried a couple of different instructors with my instrument, because I'm a high maintenance learner, and and the instrument, your instrument ticket is tough. It's not an easy, right. it's not an easy thing. So I did that at about 250 hours, I think. And I took 3 or 4 weeks off of work, came down to Florida with an instructor that I'm still very good friends with now. And I did my instrument. And then I just flew, I think the first year, I think I flew 150 instrument approaches. Oh, wow. And I just stepped on the gas with this. I upgraded my Cessna Cardinal to 2G5s, GTN 355, the 335 transponder, and I'm sorry, the 335 GTN and the 355 transponder, and I upgraded, all the electronics in it. And then I went ahead to get my commercial, and I got my commercial in March, or I got my commercial in May of this year.
Congratulations.
And I'm around 700 and change hours now.
All right, so much good stuff. So I want to go back. So you said you were a high maintenance learner. So what does that mean?
My background is in education. I used to be a teacher. Okay. I was a classroom teacher years ago, and and I develop online education. So I'm all kind of about, this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. This is how I'm going to tell you how to do it, and you're going to kind of figure that out. And then at the end, we're gonna we're gonna review. Sure. And a lot of instructors, just kind of throw you into it. I have a really, my learning style is don't give me all the facts. I've got to just do it first, and then I can review with the facts. So if we're doing points around a turn, or let's say if we're, doing the approaches, let's say take shooting an ILS approach. Explain to me. First, we're going to intercept the localizer. Then we're going to establish ourselves on the localizer and the glide path. Then we're going to stabilize our approach while it's on the localizer and glide path. Then you're going to, and I need to be kind of walked in. What's going on? Because I need to take things very slowly in a sequence, and then you can start adding on the facts and dumping all the knowledge. So, right. So I have to kind of get into it a little slowly, and one thing about my learning style is I get overwhelmed at first a little easy. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And I remember one time I was shooting the DME ARC into Lakeland, Florida, and it was an IFR day. I was in the foggles, and man, I just got behind the airplane, mm-hmm. and I'm just like, boom, it just all fell apart. And I looked, and man, my little Cessna, I did in a Cessna 150, is like 60 degrees. I'm like, and I'm like, I just said, it all fell apart. What do I do? And he goes, you're the pilot. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And I just, blew off the approach. I canceled the approach. Right. I, requested to go around, and I came back and did it again. So, it's a lot of stuff that's happening. I think that, the reality of learning, at that, you're learning a lot of high volume stuff, mm-hmm. and that in your 50s, your brain's not accustomed to it, and it takes some time because you're not a 25-year-old sponge or a 17-year-old sponge anymore. So, as a learner, you really have to prepare yourself for it, and take your time, and also realize, and, it's okay to have learning mistakes. It's okay to, you got to get into a groove with your instructor. And, and that's what I really kind of mean by being a high maintenance pilot, because it's 17, 25, you're like, yeah, whatever. Okay, do it. All right, I'll figure it out. Yeah, that's cool. And you can go and debrief the flight, and it all kind of filters in, and you got it. Well, in your 50s, you're a little bit of a control freak, mm-hmm. You're, you know what I mean? It's just, whoa, this isn't how it used to happening. But at all that being said, it is so good for your mental acuity and your brain health. And to keep yourself fresh, because it's when I went through my instrument training and my commercial, it's like this new light in my brain went on again, and I started being able to think like I was, not that 50, mid 50s is old, but I started to be able to do really quick math calculations in my head, mm-hmm. and just all right, you're going 120 miles an hour for 4 minutes. All right, that's 8 miles. Just really kind of, and that's where, that's where, as far as an over 50 learner needs to at least know it's there, and, get your brain back in shape, because your brain's a muscle.
Yeah. So I want to ask you another question, about the, differences between learning after 50. But one thing before then is, for folks that are going to start learning, you know, at the second, you know, a second phase of life, so to speak, do you recommend that they do their ground school first, before they, you know, really start? I always say, at least get into the airplane, you know, make sure you're not going to hate it. But do you recommend folks to kind of do that book work in advance?
Well, yeah. And the one thing is, that's exactly right. Get into the airplane, make sure you're not going to hate it. Make sure things like simple things like, number one, you're not going to feel ill or get nauseous. Number two, make sure. I had a couple emails from people that were big guys, and they're like, I can't fit into the airplane. That's a big deal. You know, I mean, you know, so you may, you know, so yeah, get about 10 hours, you know, make sure that you like it. Make sure that this is something that you're really going to be into, because once you get into this, it does require 150 to 200% of your, you know, your focus. It requires, you got to be all in on this. And I've talked with a couple other pilots who are, you know, who have like 120 hours and they don't even have their, you know, their private certificate yet. You know, I'm like, well, what happened? You know, so, you know, but yeah, so, you know, get about 10, 15 hours to make sure that you're ready to do it. And the way I did is that I got about 30 hours into it. And then I took the month of February off and from flight training. And I just did Jason Shapard's M0A ground school.
Okay.
And I scheduled my test and I just planned it out like it was a work project. So I said, all right, 3 weeks for ground school, 1 week for study and instrument and exam prep. And then I scheduled the test. I scheduled the test a month out. And then I just treated it like a job. So I had, you know, I think it was a couple hours a day, you know, so, you know, but the one thing is I stopped everything just to get the ticket out of the way. And then, you know, and then that was done. It was all done. It wasn't hanging over my head. So then when I went on to do my instrument, the first thing I did was I didn't even, you know, I was shooting approaches and stuff in Flight Simulator and everything, but I just stopped and I practiced on that instrument exam, because the one thing, that instrument exam is tough. And, you know, it can't be soon enough before they phase out all the VORs. I still hate VORs, but you know, you got to know this stuff, and you got to know it cold. And, you know, so do the instrument exam before you start your training, because then at that piece, it's out of the way. And once an instructor said, you'll never have to see that exam again. And you know, and that exam almost killed me. It was tough. I think I got an 83 on it, or
that's still pretty good.
You know, yeah, but it was, you know, it was respectable. I mean, and I'm not a good test taker anyway. So yeah, that's my exam for your privates. Make sure you love this stuff, and then get the exam out of the way.
Yeah, sometime later on over a burger or something, I'll tell you my story. I got to fly a 150 like one time, and just, you can't tell because we're on video, but I'm 6'8", 300 pounds. So you know, it really, it was like a clown car, you know.
Right. And I've had emails from people like, you know, that like, you can't. I mean, I did my instrument training in a 150 just because I did it, and it worked out price wise and stuff, and my plane wasn't ready yet. But 150 is a small plane, you know.
That's right. It's great though, if it works for you, it's awesome. So yeah, it doesn't burn any gas.
Right. And that's one of the reasons where, you know, I was upgrading my plane and I was putting about maybe 25,000 into my plane, which is a lot of money, but, you know, it just wasn't ready and the timing didn't work out. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do it in the 150. And, you know, I know the airplane, and also it's best to go back to bare bones during these things.
I agree.
And, you know, you know, I aced my check ride. I aced my instrument check ride. I you know, I was so proud of myself, so happy. My DPE was like, you did a really, really good job. So,
you love hearing that.
Yeah.
Now you got your commercial, you know, relatively recently. What was the emphasis for going for the commercial? Are you looking to be because you said you were an educator, you know, and you work kind of in that field. Are you looking to be a CFI at some point, or?
No, I'm not looking to be a CFI, but what, there was two things with it. Number one, it's that last professional piece. You know, you might as well get your commercial, because it's that professional ticket where really, in the big scheme of things, the commercial rating allows you to get a job. Right. That's all the commercial rating really does. However, the maneuvers were fun. You do need to have absolute 100% command authority over the aircraft and know how to do that. from everything from emergencies to landing in rough conditions and just to, landing the plane. But also what I want to do and what my personal plan is moving forward is I'm going to need the commercial rating for being a mission pilot. I'd like to be hired out as a commercial pilot as well.
Now, what do you mean by mission pilot?
Well, I work with it, or I volunteer with an organization right now called Harvest Aviation, and they're a 501c3 that's based in Wauchula, Florida. And their primary mission is delivering supplies to Belize and Honduras,
Awesome.
and everything from medical supplies to church supplies to personnel sometimes. And I've done a few mission flights with them. We did a few to the Bahamas during the disaster relief. And that's an area that I really want to focus in and volunteer my time post work life. Mm-hmm. And I'd say I don't like that word retirement, but it's it's something I want to do because so much out in the missionary field depends on aviation. Because let's say, and the question is, let's say you have 2,000 pounds of medical supplies that has to get down to Belize. Well, if you ship that UPS, number one, it's going to cost about $10,000 to, and then number two is it needs to go to these remote parts of these countries. It's just not going to get there in a decent amount of time. Versus you could put 2,000 pounds on a Piper Navajo, or let's say, I'm sorry, let me back that up. Let's say you put about 1,100 pounds on a Piper Navajo. You could get that to a rural community in Belize in 3 or 4 hours for about $2,200. Mm-hmm. And the price per pound, it can't get any cheaper than that. But also, you make sure that these supplies and these goods get into the hands of the people who actually need them. And I've done that several times. And actually, to see when you're at the airport and the people actually come and get these things, or even make sure when we did a few flights to the Bahamas, their names and addresses are on the packages. These people come and get their stuff. And it's, Belize, Bahamas, they don't have Home Depot. They don't have, medical supply centers. They don't, so I mean, simple things that we can run to Home Depot or, a health center, gauze, bandages, syringes, these, oxygen containers, as well as just, plywood. You just can't get these things in rural parts of Belize or Honduras or the Bahamas. And putting them on a small plane and getting them there is really cost effective, and it's extremely efficient. And there's plenty of people here that own airplanes and and can afford to do this stuff. And it's a great way to help out and share.
Yeah, I had the luxury of speaking to Ryan Farron recently, and he flies missionary flights in Papua New Guinea. And he talks about exactly what you just talked about. So I think that you're going to find, you've already done some of these flights, so I think you're going to find a real calling for that. It seems like anybody who gets into that type of flying, for those of you in general aviation, flying an airplane is fun. It's life-changing. Put a mission next to it, and it becomes just part of who you are. Like it's a light switch, frankly, I think, for so many people.
Right. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen. I guess I'll go ahead and be pretty blunt here and use the word retirement failures, because I've seen people get into retirement and they don't have a mission. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't have to be flying. It could be, it could be art. It could be, God gave us passions and abilities and skills. We all have them. And, when we get into this phase of life, it's really important that, number one, we're still young. Mm-hmm. And then number two is that you step on the gas on those abilities, because it will enhance your life, but also you need a mission-driven life, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be airplanes. I was a musician for years, and that was a huge focus of mine. But this is kind of shifted it where I'm actually really interested in in personnel transport for for medical purposes, or let's say if people are in a jam and they need a lawyer and their lawyer happens to be in Miami, I could go pick that person in Miami up and take him to Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
That's an hour and a half flight in my plane. And, I'm not going to charge anything for that. But getting around in small aircraft is, it's a huge time saver. It's incredibly cost effective, even in this country. And then even when we have disasters here, we had several hurricanes where, it wipes out areas. Well, we can have everything from cleaning supplies, and you can load that up in a Cessna 172. You can put 500 pounds of Clorox and wipes and towels and, and plywood and things like that in 172 and get it to a rural community within an hour or two where, if roads are out and trucks are, can't get in, that's still a viable and a much needed resource here. And as a pilot, you can really volunteer your time as well. And I know tons of pilots, and I fly for Pilots and Paws as well. And we've rescued a few dogs. In fact, I've got a program on my channel called Puppy Rescue. And I tell you, that is so incredibly cool and rewarding, is rescuing these dogs. My last flight, there was a pregnant lab who had been shot, and she was about, she was about a week before giving birth, and she was up in Georgia at a high kill shelter, and they needed Pilots and Paws put a thing out, and they needed a pilot to go get her and bring her down to a foster home in Tampa. So I went to Georgia, popped the dog, and put her in my back of my plane. And this old lab was just a pregnant old lab. Just get me. I gotta have these babies out. But yeah, so you need a mission for your life, and that's my my main message on that.
Yeah, I also think that's also a good way of living a good, healthy, long life too.
Yeah.
You talk about music. You and I talked about before we started about music, and I showed you, I got the guitar, and I play music too. But I'm always amazed. I saw a study on this one time about how really, when I say elderly, I mean like in their 90s, right?
Yeah.
Classical musicians, and they will play in orchestras into their mid 90s, and they've shown that like these classical musicians, they tend to outlive their peers by like 10 years, and they try to figure out why. And they said one of the reasons they think, and who knows, but one of the reasons they think is because they have a mission. They've got a concert in 3 months. They've their mind is like, I gotta get there. I gotta get that. I gotta get to that concert. And
I was having coffee with my dad, like a couple of months before he died. And, we were just chatting, and he was in his 90s, and he was fine. He was driving. We'd lost my mom, about 10 years before, but he was dating. He had a nice girlfriend. And, my sister was all freaked out because she's like, is he going to get married again? No, he's not going to get married again.
The 90-year-old,
don't worry about it.
The 90-year-old dad's got the Tinder profile.
Right. Exactly. It's like, but, he made this comment that I just thought was so cool. He goes, I still have so much to look forward to.
Right.
So let's go. And, and then he's like, let's go to this fish market and, and make a really nice lunch with, get this fresh tuna or something. And every day he was like that. And he was, his art is just amazing. Mm-hmm. It's still, we're still, it's online still. It's at georgebgreenfield.com, all one word. But, we want to make his artwork available for doctors' offices all over the world for free, just because that was his passion. And in the doctor's office I've been, they need decent artwork. So
Right. Now, we're talking about taking, kind of taking care of yourself, right? So obviously when you're 50, it's different than 20, right? But again, I'll tell you, I'm knocking on the door on 50 myself pretty soon here. So I used to think that man, 50 was like ancient people, and now the closer I get to it, I feel like I'm still a teenager, and I'm like, 50. Where'd that number come from? But you're right. Slowly, some things you got to start doing different things to take care of yourself. So what do you? So if somebody's going to get into aviation and they're in their 50s, what are some things that they really should be looking at?
Well, and it's timely that you said that, because my next program that I'm doing on my channel is called "What Happens When You Get Sick." Mm-hmm. And number one, you need to take care of yourself, because you're not 25 anymore. And not that 50 is old, I have a program on my channel that I did just last month called "You're Not Too Old," and you look at the people who are really, in our generation, who are just, and I always go to musicians, but think about it. Daryl Hall is 74 years old.
Yeah, the guy looks awesome too.
John Oates, I met John Oates. I saw him at a concert, and I just went backstage and met him. I was like, I just got to meet this guy, So I just kind of, and wonderful guy. Said, I don't mean to be rude. I just want to thank you, and just you're awesome. Mm-hmm. He's 72. The guy looks fabulous. Lorne Michaels, producer of Saturday Night Live, produces all these stuff. He's 74. So, Harrison Ford, 77, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney. I mean, all these guys are in their 70s and they're still out there working. They look wonderful. So the one thing is that you've got to take care of yourself. And I just actually, unfortunately, I was in the hospital over Thanksgiving with diverticulitis. My stomach had been bothering me for a few weeks, and I just thought, well, I gotta go see a GI about it and just really adjust my eating. Well, it caught up with me before I can get to the doctor, and I was in the hospital for 3 days with diverticulitis. It was really serious, and in fact, I was grounded. I grounded myself. I wasn't medically grounded, but I grounded myself for about a month because I didn't feel right. And but now as I'm starting to feel better, there has to be a diet change. You can't abuse your body. Because your body's got a finite time on it. Okay, I mean it's just that's just the reality of it. And if you take care of it, it's going to serve you well. But the one thing is that number one, you gotta exercise, and it doesn't mean working out. I hate working out. I tried lifting weights; they're too heavy. I don't run because no one's chasing me. But the one thing is that all it takes is walking. And I walk between 2 and 4 miles a day. And it's just, you just got to keep moving. And you don't have to, if you don't like to work out or whatever, or weight training, which I hate, all you do is walk or ride a bike for maybe an hour a day. Keep it moving. And then if you have a weight issue, you've got to watch that because, your body changes. We carry weight differently, and I'm not a health nut. I'm certainly not a doctor. But if you could stand to lose 20 pounds, just go ahead and lose it. If you could stand to lose 30 or more, do something about that, because your body is working, twice as hard as it should just to kind of perform normal functions. And you really have to watch your diet. I know with me, I have to have a complete diet change. I would pride myself on being in my mid-50s and being able to sit down and eat a full pizza all by myself and not have a problem. Well, those days are over. I used to love my big steaks with béarnaise sauce. Sorry, those days are over. So I've really got to put myself on a diet change, and it's been about a month so far. And, I feel fantastic, but I've got to keep feeling fantastic. So you really have to watch yourself. And little things like, I've gotten a few emails about people who have had high blood pressure. Well, you could change that with diet and exercise. And then the biggest thing that I noticed personally was when I started flying about 4 years ago, about 3-4 years ago, at the same time I quit drinking. And I wasn't drinking a lot or anything. It certainly wasn't a problem, but I had just noticed that alcohol was affecting me differently. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just gonna stop. And it didn't really require any effort or anything like that. But the one thing, I was, maybe a glass of wine every week, maybe that. And then when I'd get together with friends, you'd have a few glasses of wine and stuff like that. And all that, but your body can't handle that anymore. And also the weight gain from alcohol is really, it's a lot. How much a couple of beers a day will, that will put 15, 20 pounds on you like that. And if you stop that weight will come off. And as I've stopped drinking, I've noticed that overall my health has been better. I've slept better. And that's one thing, sleeping is really, really important. to up that sleep. Sometimes you may need, 8-9 hours. Some people don't. Some people, are good with, 5 or 6. I'm not one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing is really focus on your health, because as we get older, you won't bounce back like you're in your 20s. And then the bottom line is, if you're sick, you can't fly. So
Right.
if you're sick and you have high blood pressure and you're on high blood pressure meds, those might not be on the no fly list, those meds. So you could make those necessary changes with diet and exercise. You don't need to load yourself up with pills. And I'm not saying go to some go out to some, camp in California where you're talking to trees and you'll be all better, but
you go into the tent with the smoke.
Right, exactly. And it's like, now you communicate with the bears. But the one thing is that focus in on that health, because you'll feel better. You don't need to be loaded up with meds. I think that the health is so important, because if you're sick, you can't fly. But also, everyone's living longer now. And look at our, and not to get political at all, I don't want to do that, but look at the politicians that we have. These guys are in their 70s.
Yeah, late 70s.
And I think 70, when we were in our 20s, 70 was old. Well, 70 is not old right now. Not if Mick Jagger's doing his thing. Paul McCartney's still touring at 77. Billy Joel is 70,
Right.
So I think that we're going to be living into our 90s, and we can have a healthy life, but we don't want to end up in our 90s in a scooter. And, right. And that's really, I'm pretty serious about that, because, and again, to go to musicians, Phil Collins is Phil Collins. He's wonderful, but his health isn't that good.
Right.
And I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he's got, bad arthritis, and, and it's like, and, you don't want to be hard on our body. So, you don't want to, and I see people in scooters, and I'm like, oh, come on, that's, they're 200 pounds overweight. Well, that, that you could have done something about, maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And we got to really watch that, because I think that we can all be functioning, happy pilots well into our 70s.
Right.
And Harrison Ford's still working at 77, and he's, still flying around. Morgan Freeman's a pilot. Kurt Russell's in his 70s, and he has a TBM, So, I really want to focus and say, please pay attention to your health, get out. And it doesn't take much. Diet and exercise, and you don't have to go to a gym. I don't want to go to a gym. I wouldn't want to go to a gym ever. But I get up and I walk 4 miles a day on a beautiful nature park, or I get on a bike and ride for, an hour, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. It's, you talk about flying later, in life. We have a pilot here in Civil Air Patrol, and absolutely incredible individual. I won't say his name, but absolutely incredible individual. And he just turned 80.
Yeah.
And you talk to him, he's smarter than I am,
Yeah.
And so, and he's in great health.
Yeah.
I think he just had to have a hip or a knee or something like that, surgery. But the exception of that, guy looks like he could go out and play rugby. So.
Right. And the thing is, and it's all up here, it's all, it's all on your attitude, on your outlook, and, your health comes from the inside out.
Right. Yeah, no, just got to keep yourself active. Like you said, and give yourself that mission.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about your airplane a little bit. So, what type of, you bought an airplane. So what did you buy?
I bought a Cessna Cardinal, a 1968 Cessna Cardinal. And I have had a ton of experience with boats in my life. And I've had a bunch of boats. And so I always equate it to owning a bigger boat. So I was kind of cautious going into it. And I said, well, here's my kind of initial budget. And I wanted an escape hatch. I wanted, a parachute to say, hey, if I don't like plane ownership, I just want to be able to get out of this thing. Mm-hmm. So I came up with a budget of around $40,000. I said, that's what,
wow.
That's what I can buy. So I bought this Cessna Cardinal. I found it on Trade-A-Plane. And in all honesty, it was almost a piece of crap. That's what the mechanic said. He said, it's almost a piece of crap. It's worth $38,000. It's a good airplane, but you're going to have to upgrade it. And I said, my mission here with buying this airplane is put 100 hours on it, fly it around, get my VFR time. If I love it, I'm going to upgrade it,
Yep.
or I'll just buy another plane. And it was kind of that, put your foot in the water a little bit. I got in that plane in 2 minutes. I was like, yeah, I'm done. I've got it, And so I flew it. It was, and you can see the videos on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much, walk you through, the upgrades and everything. But it was VFR at first. The engine was fine. The airframe was fine. The radio, I had like an old Apollo, GPS that didn't really work. And, I don't even think they upgraded it, but the radio worked in it. My attitude indicator had Parkinson's, so it was kind of, and then at the end, it started spinning around one day. I'm like, okay, this thing needs to go,
Thus the G5s probably.
Right. Yeah. So I really flew it until everything broke, I mean, but the one thing is I just put about 150 hours onto it, and it was around the DC area. So I just flew it. I just flew as much as I can, every minute I can, and got to know about airplane ownership, and then set up myself with a budget, educated myself on what needs to happen. And then I took the plane down to a mechanic in Florida, and then I put in 2 G5s, a new transponder. I refurbished the KX 155, and then through a couple of annuals, I just had a lot of work done where I was like, you know what, fix it, just fix it.
Right.
And I got into that because I wanted a bunch of all the old wiring removed.
Yep.
So I did spend a little bit too much, but then that was all really because of peace of mind. I'm in the safety business at work. So, spending an extra $1,500 or $2,000 just to make sure it's done right, I didn't have a problem with it. And more so for the next owner of the plane. So I know that when I do sell it, that these things have been taken care of. And then I upgraded, this year I upgraded all the lights to LED lights. And I love the airplane. It served me so well. I've put about maybe 25,000 in upgrades over it. And then my maintenance has been about maybe $3,000 a year on top of that.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. But then when then it's like, all right, change the tires. Let's just get these things fixed so I don't have to think about it, and and also it's just, it's done. I don't need to worry about it. Go ahead, let these rotors need to be fixed, the brakes. So, a couple repairs were a little pricey, but at the end of the day, during the, I don't want to say close calls, but during those urgent events, let's say I did have an alternator failure. And then my whole power stack went out.
Yep.
And so Squawk 7600, lost comms, everything like that, but everything was fine. But knowing that, all right, the brakes are going to work. I don't have any, I don't have any other issues, no electrical issues. And that is such a peace of mind. And when you land safety after any kind of event, that peace of mind, you don't care what it costs, and it's worth it,
And you also had installed the G5s by then. So when you had, I want people to go watch that video, so I'm not going to spoil it for folks. But the G5s, they have their own battery.
And they were still on. So I had my airspeed, I had all my primary 6-pack instruments, and then the first thing I did after that Nordo incident was went out and I bought a handheld. And,
handheld radio,
and I bought a good handheld with jacks and everything. And it was like, so so that's always charged up and and with me as well. But that when the G5s, when I had my primary 6-pack still on battery power, and I was in 15 minutes to St. Pete at Whitted Field, they had cleared the field for me, but just having your airspeed and those basic instruments, that was well worth the G5 money. And then it was an alternator problem, and I didn't need the alternator replaced. It was just the belt and a fuse, I think. $350 later, I'm back in the air.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. Yeah, not too horrible.
Yeah,
because repairs on airplanes can get expensive pretty quick.
They can, and there's two schools of thought. You don't want to throw good money after bad, but at the same time, you don't want to be cheap on safety.
Right.
And
you don't ever want to be in the air and wish you were on the ground. Yeah.
Right. And, so I've, my mechanic, he said, hey, this is, there was something with the carb heat and the carb heat door needed to be rebuilt. And then I thought, you know what, if I'm ever in icing conditions, I never even I just want to know that thing's perfect. I'm like, rebuild it.
Yeah. You don't want to have it in the back of your head. Yeah.
Right. It was $1,200. Well, then sure enough, a year later, if you look at the program on icing, I'm coming into DC. The controller descended me into the clouds, and boom, I just iced up really quickly. It's a really cool video to watch. But that carb heat and that pitot heat came on, and I remember I pulled that carb heat, and I'm like, I don't have to worry about it. I know that thing's working. That's nice. I was in icing for about 15 minutes, and then they lowered me out of it, and it was all cool. It's a great program. So it's just on icing, and it's on my channel. But it was my first real, icing event, and also having that peace of mind that knowing, okay, that's going to work, because you're running through all these things in your head, and it's well worth whatever money you spend.
Now, because a Cardinal, especially, specifically probably your Cardinal, I mean, it's not designed, for known icing, right? So, correct. So when the airplane went into icing, I mean, did you call air traffic control? Like, how did you handle the icing situation? So, because that can be a real emergency really fast.
Yeah, right. So they descended me. I believe I was at 6,000. They descended me into 4,000, and then I went into the clouds. And then the first thing I did, I looked at the temperature gauge, and it was right a little bit above zero. So I popped on my pitot heat, and then I was actually maybe about 30 miles from VKX. So I knew they'd be descending me. Well, then on the radio, I heard Air Force 2, you're cleared.
Air Force 2.
Right. So Air Force 2, the vice president is cleared right underneath me to this waypoint that I knew where I was, where he's going to make a left turn and land at Andrews at 01. And so I heard that call. So Air Force 2 is right underneath me. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're not going to lower me for a couple minutes.
Oh, yeah, you're done. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, and then and then I'm in IMC, so I'm just really focused on the instruments. And then I looked up, and there's a sheet of ice on my windshield.
Oh no.
And I looked down the wings, and it's all rime. And I looked at, and I'm like, uh-oh. So, so I said, all right, Potomac approach, you got to lower me. I'm icing up here.
Yeah.
And then he goes, stand by. And then I'm like, all right. And then I'm just literally counting to 10 because I'm going to declare an emergency.
Right.
And
meanwhile, you've got F-16s because you got Air Force 2 underneath you. F-16s are going to shoot you down.
So it's really, so then
you just send on them.
Right, exactly. So then I was like 1, 2, and then it goes, all right, 221 for Yankee, descend down to 2,500. And the moment I came out of the clouds, I looked up at the temperature, the ice broke up, and
good.
Temperature came back, and it was, it was fine. So, so I was just about to declare, and I knew the ceilings were at about 2,500.
Yep.
And the temperature at 2,500, I believe, was around in the 40s. So
so it really changed.
Really quickly.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. Yeah, because icing can be so disastrous so quickly for GA.
Right.
These GA airplanes, they only got 150, 200 horsepower, 250 horsepower, depending on what you're flying. And what's the 177? What's the Cardinal? Is it
I've got 150 horsepower in mine with a power flow on it, so it's about 150 to 170 horsepower.
Okay. I mean, so you get these airplanes, 170 horsepower. That controller, if he didn't let you descend, if you had rime icing, it might be hard to climb.
I couldn't climb. Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to climb. I mean, it wasn't critical yet, but literally I said I'm going to count to 10 and then declare, and then I got to 2, and in my head, and then I was like, and then he just descended me, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, and that's actually really important for people to hear, because like if somebody is like, if they're a student pilot, like I don't care. Like let's say you're a student pilot, and you're doing your solo cross country. Okay, first of all, if you got yourself into a situation like that, shame on you and your instructor for letting you fly in a situation that was dangerous.
But it could pop up, and that's the one thing with weather in the fall and the spring, in the winter, it will pop up. And from my sailing experience, I spent years, as a bareboat charter instructor and everything. Weather pops up. Yep. It just, you don't have any control of it. So,
but in the end, you fly that airplane. Air traffic control isn't sitting next to you. They're there to help you. And so, if you need to do something for the safety of you do it. I mean, you deal with, and again, I have never once heard air traffic control like do anything that wasn't in the pilot's best interest when the pilot asked for it. I've never heard it. I've heard air traffic control yell at somebody, when they weren't doing something right. I got yelled at in New York one time. I misread a departure, procedure, and I started to turn when they were expecting me to go straight. And the guy caught it really quick because they don't get a lot of 182 pilots flying in New York Class B, and so they were watching me. And he's like, "Where do you think you're going? Turn left."
Right with the ad. What do you think you're doing here? I need you to go straight. What are you talking about? You listen to me.
And at first I was like, I didn't know what I did wrong, so I was so confused, but I got on the ground and I called him and I said, "What did I do?" And he told me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
But anyways, but even then they laugh, and the air traffic controllers, just for people that are listening, if you're going to go become a student pilot, just know that, yes, it seems like there's this stress. Like, I'm like this pilot and there's this authority figure in air traffic control. They are your friends. They are there to help you.
And they actually work for you.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one. And the one thing is that a lot of people, myself included, were really freaked out about radio comms. Mm-hmm. And I have a program on my channel where what really helped me was that I started doing it when I drove.
Okay.
So and it's what I did is I put on liveatc.net, pumped it through the Bluetooth, and then I just put myself in traffic, and then I just navigated through traffic, and I was just repeating the radio calls just so I could get my brain used to talking and driving, and that helped me tremendously. And as I've flown more and more, I'm very comfortable on the radio. And, I think a couple of times I've actually joked around with controllers when it's been kind of quiet, but yeah, they work for you. They're there to help you. Never be intimidated. And also it's okay to say, all right, I got a problem. Right. And if that problem's you're over your head or you're behind the airplane, tell them, because a lot of these controllers are pilots.
Right.
And they will, I had a friend actually who made an off airport landing. She just lost power at, I think, like 2,800 feet. And she put the plane down on a highway. Wow. And but the controller was just amazing. And, she called the controller afterwards and thanked her. But, the controller's like, all right, you got a road off to your left here. Is there anybody on there? She goes, no, I'm gonna do the road. And they lost contact, but she called them afterwards, she called her afterwards, and the controller was just amazing, and in getting other pilots to find out and make sure she was safe and stuff like that. And they do work for you. They're your friends. So never be afraid of it. If you're afraid of talking on the radio, just practice, listen to atc.net and just practice those radio calls, and then do it when you're driving.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good suggestion. I'm actually going to try that. I've never tried that before. The other thing too is you kind of already said it, but like make sure you talk to the controller sooner rather than later. Yeah. These controllers, yes, we hear them doing the normal day-to-day call outs like every day, every minute, but these folks are trained to handle the emergencies. And so when you declare an emergency, these people are professionals. Like even if you're in a bad way, and they're gonna, they can start the police, the fire department. They can start like Civil Air Patrol. They can say if you're going into the woods, they can start search and rescue. They have the ability to start a lot of things. And if you
I don't think a lot of people realize that for every pilot in the air, there's like 3 or 4 people on the ground just for that one plane. And the support staff that you have at your fingertips is really amazing, and they're there to help you. And they do. These guys are amazing. I know a lot of them through work, and so and the stories that I hear of these guys, just basically saving lives, all the time is just fabulous.
Yeah, the other thing too, I don't see a lot of people do this, but I do recommend it. You can't do it right now because of COVID, but hopefully when life turns, somewhat back to normal, they have tower tours, and a lot of times the FAA controllers will have little picnic days, come meet the controllers. And I so recommend that, because when you get the face with the voice, and you're like, oh, okay. The aviation, like you said earlier, aviation is a small community. And, you hear, Jimmy, or Susan, on the radio, and it almost is comforting. It's like, okay, well, Susan's working today. Susan's got her eyes on me, as opposed to some FAA government official person, and
right. And there's I fly a lot around the Tampa class Bravo airspace around here. And there's this English controller. I don't know his name. I call him Rockstar. Okay. This guy is amazing. I mean, he's amazing. And he has this dry sense of humor. And, and he's just, but I've heard him handle multiple, GA traffic along with the, with the commercial traffic that's going into TPA. And he cleared me once to go to do the Tampa transition from the Gulf over Tampa 927, and then up, it turned me north up to Zephyr Hills where I was going. I had never done that before. So, so he's like, all right, 221 for Yankee, I need you to make a right turn 090 and tell me when you've got runway 9 inside at Tampa International. And I'm like, I'm not going to Tampa International. I'm like, I'm going to Zephyr Hills. He goes, I know that, but I'm clearing you for the Tampa transition. If you are unfamiliar with that, let me know. And I'm like, I'm unfamiliar with that. He goes, and then he's really cool. He goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear you over. I think it was maybe 2,200 feet or whatever, but I'm going to clear you. You're going to fly right over 927 at Tampa International. Then I'm going to turn you north and you're going to go right under Zephyr Hills. It's going to save you time. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know about that. Okay, cool. And, so it was really, but the professional, the professionalism of these guys and the safety, that safety first, mode of operating is just, is spectacular. They're your friends. They're here, they're here to help you, and they work for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And even, one of the things in aviation, a lot of people don't realize this, and some people say, well, they shouldn't have this. I totally disagree with it, is that we have the NASA form, right? So, yes. Even if you do something, listen, we're all human. We all make mistakes. I don't care. I always get mad when something really bad happens in aviation and, it turns out the pilot did something, and people are like, how could that happen? If you were a pilot, you'd understand how these things happen. We're all human. And that's why you have, in my opinion, that's why you have two people in the airplanes and commercial airlines. It's not so much that you need two people to fly that airplane. It's so that you have two people. So if one person makes a mental mistake, the other person hopefully catches it.
Right, exactly.
But but we're in these airplanes by ourselves, and so really our co-pilot is the FAA. It is that air traffic controller. So and then one thing that you can do in general aviation, in actually commercial aviation as well, you can declare, "Holy cow, I messed up," and you can just as long as we have that honesty as a professional, even if you're a civilian aviator, when you're in that airplane, you're a professional, right?
Right.
So you have to treat it that way. And so so anybody, again, going back to the student pilots, a lot of people that listen to these podcasts are going to be students. So, or people want to go into flying. So if you ever get into a situation, even if you're a student pilot, you're on a solo someplace, don't feel like if you call air traffic control and say, I'm lost, I don't know where I am, I got, there's clouds underneath me, I can't figure out how to get underneath it. Don't worry about it. Like, don't even worry about getting in trouble.
And I'll tell you a story what happened to me on my first cross-country solo when I was getting my private. I was going from Dare County in North Carolina, and I was going up to Williamsburg. And I was just going to stop, refuel, and turn around and come back. Well, I get up to Williamsburg and I can't find the airport. And I'm looking at my iPad and I see it's right there, but I was actually directly over it,
So the airplane was blocking it.
So I couldn't, I'm looking around and I'm directly over it. So I see this airport off to my left and I'm like, oh, that must be it. So I take a left turn and I'm heading to this airport, and then something didn't feel right. Well, that airport, because I looked at the airport and the runway was just spectacular, brand new, crisp and clean. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't, and then the airport's like off in the woods. And I'm like, what? There's no roads. What's going on? That airport was Camp Perry, which is the CIA training ground.
Oh, that would have been bad.
And I was like preparing to land that little 150 there, right? And I'm like, wait. And I looked on my pen. I'm like, oh my God, that's Camp Perry. And I'm like, so I turned back, and then when I turned around, made the 180, I'm like, oh, there's Williamsburg. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Things happen, and I've still been at 700 hours. I've still, come into airports where I'm 3 or 4 miles from it and I can't see it,
yep.
Just for whatever reason. So, I've told the controller, I don't really have it in sight yet, but why don't you just send me? And then on the 335, you had that visual approach feature that I use all the time.
Yep.
That'll, give you a glide slope and localizer to, line up with the runway. So, but it happens, and that's what they're there for. They're there to help you.
Yeah, not to waste your time. There was one time, a similar story. We had where I was flying. I'm not gonna say where it was, but they had a little airport which I was flying into, and it was a GPS approach. And then about 6 miles away from it, so really close, was a Class C airport, relatively busy Class C airport. And so it came out of the clouds, and the little tiny airport, its lights were horrible. And so my eyes caught the Rabbit on the bigger airport.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, so I figured, now I'm not flying a really fancy airplane. I don't have glass cockpit. I don't have anything like that. I just had the little needle. And so I thought, well, maybe my thing is off. So I just jumped over to the other, there's the runway. So I can see it now. So I jumped over. And so the air traffic controller called back and said, hey, just FYI, you're on an approach for runway 25 at this airport. And I said, oh, that's not where I'm landing. He goes, no, that's not where you're landing. So every time somebody hears those stories of the pilots landing at the wrong airports, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. And it's, and it is the work. A lot of people don't realize that the workload, even in a general aviation aircraft, could get high at some point, there's a lot, my instructor told me 2 things that have stayed with me when I was getting my private ticket, is that she said, number 1, there's a lot going on an airplane. Mm-hmm. And number 2 is the airplane knows more about flying than you do.
That's true.
Yeah.
So Ted, as we wrap up here, so I had so many other things I want to talk to you about. So I definitely think we should do this thing at Oshkosh.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to start emailing people.
Fun, any air show,
Yeah. Sun and fun. It'd be easier for you down in Florida, right? So now, you're based out of Virginia, but do you live in Florida?
I'm back and forth between DC and Florida.
Okay.
So right now, we're all teleworking at work, and I could live down. I have a little condo in Tampa. And, so I can stay there. I'm right near Zephyr Hills. I love that little airport. So my plane's there. And, so I'm going to spend the winter down here. And I'm really not a fan of the cold anymore. And I think I've got maybe 3.5 years before I can transition out of the government. Mm-hmm. And, so I'm starting my mission work and starting, to fly more, and I'll be taking more time off to do that. And hopefully being transitioned to full-time telework, because this is really where I want to be with my, mission aviation work. I want to get into more of I plan on upgrading my plane in 2021. So I want to plan on doing a lot more angel flight type of, medical transport and personnel transport to people who just need to get around, whether it be East Coast or Florida. And focus on that as I transition out of the government. But I'll still be making multimedia. I love where I work. I love the people who I work for, and it's and I love what I do. It's certainly not work at all.
And you don't hear a lot of people say that about their jobs. So I'm happy to hear that you have a job that you do love. So I think we hear where you're going. But now when you start the missionary flying and the mission flying, are you going to be putting it up on your channel, or are you going to keep your channel more towards?
I'm gonna I may put some of it on. I mean, I think that the channel is I really want to focus on encouraging people who are our age to get in and get in and get up in the air.
Right.
And I want to just, hey, this is how much an annual costs. This is a problem I had. I just want to share my adventures and answer those questions and really, alleviate those fears. Everything from, how do you communicate on the radio to, what happens if my annual costs too much? Flying with kids, planning cross countries, and little things. Replacing door seals. So I want to keep that channel just there to encourage folks to to get in there and say, yeah, you can do this in this chapter of your life very effectively. You can do it very professionally, or whatever that mission is that you want to do it. Whether you just want to get your private ticket and go out for $100 hamburgers and take family members, or if you, some guy called me a while ago and he owns a couple of restaurants. And he's like, I'm driving all over Florida. He's got restaurants in like Tallahassee and some in Destin and some in Tampa and a couple in Miami. And he's like, I'm driving all over. And I'm like, yeah, you certainly could spend the next 2 years in flight training, but get yourself a decent airplane like a Cirrus or a Columbia. And you can get up to the point where now instead of driving, you're flying between your restaurants, and you can easily do that. So whatever your mission is, and if you want to be a missionary pilot, and you can, even at 50 and over 50, you could get a job flying. I've actually been offered 2 jobs that I really seriously considered. But I was like, I don't know if I want to work that hard,
Right.
I mean, but one place I know that we're hiring was Tropic Ocean Air before COVID. I strongly considered applying. I have my commercial, I have my seaplane rating. I have 700 hours, and I was like, you know what? I think I could do this, and so you can get a job. You can get a job for, for air ambulance companies, and it's possible. And Nancy Bradshaw, is a fantastic encouragement example about that, because, the regional that she was working for let her go, and next thing you know, she's flying a 7-4 around. Pretty cool.
Yeah, she went from, I'll tell you what, I don't usually do this, but if on the show notes, underneath your link, I'll throw Nancy's link. I'll also throw a card. Let's see if I have the right direction here. A card. I'll throw a card up here on the YouTube thing. You can click, because we did actually just speak with Nancy a couple weeks ago, so you can watch her guest host interview. But yeah, she went from a 50-seat regional, airliner, and it was ExpressJet. And so ExpressJet has actually closed. So those of us that fly American Airlines a lot, there's no more ExpressJet. And so she didn't get furloughed, like the company actually closed. And so, so bad. The aviation industry is just taking it on the nose, and everybody, everybody talks about the pilots, but everybody, the baggage handlers, the people that, the stewardesses and the stewards inside the airplane, it's been horrible. So, but she kept working. She put that grind in, and she jumped from a 50-seater little puddle jumper, to one of the largest airplanes ever made in man.
And the thing is, when she texted me, and I literally pulled my car over. I pulled into this bank parking lot, and I was like, Nancy, I'm so excited for you, and I called her, and I was like, I was just so thrilled for her. But the airline industry will recover, and the airline industry will reinvent itself. So we are going through a dip right now. The whole planet is going through a dip. But, we remember what happened in 2000 and then 2008 with the financial crisis. And then,
September 11th.
Remember when the internet bubble popped? I had an internet company back then, and, we thought it was all over. We're all doomed, but all these new businesses came out of it. So the airline industry will recover. If you are a pilot right now, do not stop because of this momentary dip. Keep on going, because I personally think that there will be a bunch of air Ubers coming out under a 135 operation that not a lot of people want to fly commercially anymore. And myself included, I just don't plan on getting in a commercial jet unless I actually have to. I got my own plane. But so there will be all these other industries that are going to pop up over the next few years. And I'm really excited to see what that's going to happen, because after every dip in our planet's history,
Right.
we've come back, we've
Stronger.
reinvented ourselves, and it's going to be better than it was before. So don't get disheartened and negative about it, because that's just a bad option.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. I think that if you're somebody that is just starting your path, if you want to become a commercial pilot, and I've talked to so many people and they're like, "Oh, this was a horrible choice. I should get out." I'm like, "You're insane." I'm like, "This is the best time to be starting this, because you're at the base." And so a lot of people have left aviation. A lot of pilots have gone into other jobs because they have the house payment, they've got the kids, they've got college, they've got whatever they've got. And so they went to another job. And so there was, I don't know how real it was or wasn't, depending on the industry, but, there was very much talk about the big pilot shortage prior to COVID. And that pilot shortage didn't go away. And we just stopped the demand, right? Yeah. We still have a supply issue, and but we lowered the demand. When COVID, we get back to normal, it's going to slowly come back up again. The same way it did after September 11th, same way it did after the 2008s. And we are going to have a loss of pilots.
Right. And also, cargo is just increasing. I mean, so Amazon has these big jets, but also they're going to have smaller carriers. So I think there's going to be, so many opportunities. And then I used to sell yachts when I was a classroom teacher. And that's something that people could do at our age too, because once you're a pilot and you got a little bit of sales skill, you could go sell airplanes.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with selling a $200,000 or $300,000 item when you get a piece of commission on it, and
right.
It's an airplane, something you love. So there's so many opportunities to do that. You just kind of got to step on the gas and keep those. I read one book about, in life, the border blockers, the border bullies. When you're transitioning from one part of life to another, and you're going from one area to another, keep those naysayers out of the way.
Yeah.
Step on the gas and go forward, because you can do it. And Nancy Bradshaw is a perfect example of that. And if I at 50, I'll be 58 in February. I wanted to have 1,000 hours by the time I was 58. I'm close. I'm 700. So I can easily, probably January 2020, I can have my 1,000 hours. January 2022, I can have my 1,000 hours.
Well, if you're looking to blow some hours, come pick me up in Greenville.
Absolutely.
We'll go have a, we'll go. You're used to being in the DC special VFR, so we can we'll go fly down to IAD and we'll go check out the museum. So
absolutely, that would be a really cool program. Actually, let's plan on that,
dude. Let's do it. I'm in. Yeah. Now, like I said, I'm 6 now. I've lost a little bit of weight now, but I'm 6'8" and I'm still about 290. So we have to put a little bit of fuel out of the wing, but
yeah,
but I'm down. All right, man. Hey, listen, I've kept you long, so I really do appreciate you sticking in with us. And I have so many more questions I wanted to talk to you about. So maybe in the future, you think about maybe come back on again.
Absolutely, anytime. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to you. And if your listeners and viewers have questions, just reach out to me at over50andlearningtofly@gmail.com, and or leave a comment on the channel. And I'll be more than happy to to talk, reach out, do whatever I can do, and then keep on stepping on the gas on what I'm doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a small community, and you, like so many of the other folks that we hear and see, you're so approachable to the community, and as a member of that community, thank you for that. So
you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, Ted, I think I'm going to let you go. And again, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. Thanks.
All right. Bye. All right. So that was our guest host today with Ted Greenfield, and just really a down-to-earth person. And I think that anybody that's interested in aviation, you're going to find that over and over again. The community itself is really warm and enveloping, and Ted is a good example of that. So, and Ted, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Ted actually works with the FAAST team on aviation safety, and so Ted really kind of does live this life. So definitely go check out his channel. I'll put a link down below to it. And with that, I hope you all had a great time. If you are looking to find out more information about Civil Air Patrol, you can go visit gocivilairpatrol.com. If you wanted more information or content, you can reach out to me. I do my best to make sure I respond to everybody that comments as well. Our Twitter is at aerospace_live. And if you want to watch these or listen to these, if you're going to exercise and go on those 3-mile walks like Ted's talking about, you can throw us up on the podcast, and it's Aerospace-Live is the podcast. And our home base here is on YouTube, which is /Robert Roberts, or you can just search for Aerospace Education, and you'll see this beautiful face pop up. So with that, I hope you all have an awesome day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content. Up here on the left-hand side, you're going to see another video from our this playlist. And if you click down here, you're going to see another video on our channel. Hope you guys all have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.